All right, Mayor Hamilton, if you want to kick us off.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't get the cool background. I mean, I'm sure I could have, but you guys look great with that. I'll just be really brief. Thank you, Beth, and all who are participating here. I want to thank the group that has helped make this project come to pass, both inside the city, many of whom are here, plus those you've been partnering with around the community. This, as many folks know, but I want to make sure you know, this project was all part of the bicentennial gift that the community voted on through the council back in 2018 at our 200th anniversary as a city to think about what we could give to the next generations in the future. And one example of that was a set of trails, one of which is this one. And the 7 line is a really exciting way, I think, for us to reimagine and reconstruct kind of some of the physical infrastructure of Bloomington for the next generation. It's a beautiful project. I think the first phase here tonight, talking about going from the Beeline East over to IU campus, basically to Woodlawn, and then we hope in future chapters to take it from IU campus east all the way out to 446 to create this really wonderful multimodal path with a protected bike lane and new experience for bicyclists and pedestrians and others on this east-west corridor. We know how dramatic the Beeline has been for the city, and this is not a rail corridor, so it's a little different from that. But it is a great corridor to invest in and improve. And I want to thank everybody who's worked on it. I want to thank those who've helped imagine it and design it, and now putting it into place. So I will get out of the way and let the officials and the experts get into this. But I just, on behalf of the whole community, wanted to say thank you and how excited we are about this prospect for the coming months of the build. All right. Don't ask me any hard questions now. That's all coming to you. But good work, everyone. And I'll listen as I can. I don't know if I can stay for the whole meeting, but thanks a bunch.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Hamilton. Let's see. Okay. Welcome to this meeting about the 7 line project. Just a little bit of Zoom information. We are recording this meeting. We can post that later on the project page. And we have everyone set to mute for now. You're welcome to put questions into the chat box, and we will talk about all those questions as we can at the end. Honestly, unless there's one I should address while we're moving, in which case I'll ask a colleague to kind of call that out. So we'll get started. So tonight, welcome. Thanks for coming to this meeting. I'm going to go over introductions of our team members who are on the call tonight. We're going to talk about a little bit of the background of the 7 line project, such as what is the 7 line, and a little bit about the design of the 7 line, including changes that have happened since the last public meeting. We'll talk about construction, a little bit of what to expect and the overall timeline, and then we'll have a lot of time for questions, hopefully. So on this call tonight, or on this virtual public meeting, I'm Beth Rosenbarger. I'm the Planning Services Manager with the Planning and Transportation Department with the City of Bloomington. We have Roy Ayton, who is a Senior Project Manager, and he's with the Engineering Department, and Neil Copper, who is a Senior Project Engineer with the Engineering Department, and all of us are with the City of Bloomington. We also have Ken Olson, who is with American Structure Point, and American Structure Point was a firm, or is the firm that has done the detailed design of this project. And we have Trent Newport with Crossroad Engineers, and that company will be doing the construction management, is that right, of the project? Okay, thanks, Roy. And so you'll hear from probably all of us, but anybody's available for questions. And I'm sorry, I forgot to include Zach Hunick is on the call, and he is with Bloomington Transit. And So we're happy to have everybody here. So first, what is the 7 line? 7th Street is basically an east-west connection across the city, and you can see it here in this map. As we move to the east side of the city, 7th Street changes to Longview and Morningside, but this has been identified as an east-west corridor for bicycle and pedestrian connectivity in the city. And that's been identified in several plans, but in the most recent transportation plan that was adopted, this corridor was identified as part of the Priority Bicycle Facilities Network. And what that means is we're trying to, as a community, build a I don't want to say bare bones, but like a network of bicycle connections across the city. And what we want is the comfort and safety that the Beeline provides to exist in many places across the city. And 7th Street is an extension of that. So the users that we want to design for are people who will bicycle on the Beeline and feel really comfortable there, but probably don't feel comfortable bicycling on many other streets in town. And so through designing this corridor and what it looks like across the length of it, that's the design user we have in mind. And in the transportation plan, 7th Street and the 7th Longview Morningside corridor has different facility recommendations for different parts of it. So because the street changes context as it moves through the city, the type of facility that will be there will change as well. But the goal is to still have that level of comfort as you move through the city. So when the street becomes less traveled by motor vehicles, the facility will look a little different as we get to those phases. So first going to tell you a little bit about the next phase of the project. So the next phase of looking at the 7 line and the 7th Street corridor is to build out a section from Union Street to the bypass. And this section is identified as a neighborhood greenway. So that will be an on-street facility with traffic calming and some other elements. We have a public meeting scheduled for that section next Tuesday, May 4th. And that starts at 5:30 p.m. And information about how to access the virtual public meeting can be found online at bloomington.in.gov/TCGP. And that's for Traffic Calming and Greenways Program. So just to let you know, that is coming up too. So that's a second phase of the 7 line. And tonight we're here to talk about the first phase. And this section is looking at 7th Street from the Beeline to Woodlawn Avenue. And so in the transportation plan, this section is recommended to be a protected bicycle lane. And that is what's going to be constructed and built in this section. So first, what is a protected bicycle lane? I think a lot of people have seen bicycle lanes around town, and we're really familiar with the space where you drive, having a stripe and having a striped bicycle lane next to that. A protected bike lane is is the next step from a striped bike lane. So as we move from left to right on this screen, just to understand it a bit more, what you would see is a sidewalk and then a space next to the sidewalk that usually contains street trees or something separating pedestrians from the street. Then you see the bike lane, and that's at like street level, so you can tell there's some little curbs that go down and back up. And what makes this a protected bike lane is the section to the right of it that has a physical barrier between the bicycle lane and moving traffic. And for the 7 line, this is more or less what the 7 line looks like, and our street buffer is a median. And sometimes that median includes just kind of concrete or another material. Sometimes it includes street trees where it's wide enough, and sometimes it includes bus stops where there are bus stops planned along the route. And then next to the median, you have the motor vehicle travel lanes. So in the meeting we held last June, we really went over a lot of the design, and it's available online. So I'm just going to briefly touch on it tonight to kind of refresh. So the 7 line, this is another cross section to give us an example of what it would look like. This side of the sidewalk would be the north side of the street, and on the right side is the south side of the street. And so in this example, the cross section from 7th and Washington, we see this is an example that has a bus stop within the median. So what happens is the protected bike lane will have some warnings within it to let them know there's a pedestrian crossing, and there's a pedestrian crossing from the sidewalk over to the bus stop. And then people waiting on the bus get to wait in this median where, you know, load and unload from the bus in that location. So sometimes these are called floating bus stops, but it's just a bus stop that's between the protected bike lane and the motor vehicle lane where the bus will be. So, like I said, in the previous meeting, we went over the design a lot, and I'll touch on some changes that have happened online on the 7-line website. You can see the link to it at the bottom of the screen. There's a block by block overview of the project. So if you are really interested in one of the blocks specifically, number one, we can answer questions about that for you here. And you can also go online to see the detailed design. So this is showing one block from Walnut to Washington. We're looking at an aerial view, so overhead of what it is to look like. And so you can see here on the screen, we have the sidewalk and the tree plot. You have the two-way protected bicycle facility and a median that separates that from moving traffic. And the median in this case includes some trees. As we continue east, this is one of the bus stops that we were just looking at, and then it continues on. There are lots of improvements along with this project in addition to the two-way bicycle facility, such as the 3 bus stops that are a part of it along the project. I'm sorry, it might be 2 bus stops. And then each of the intersections along it has a crossing treatment for bicyclists and for pedestrians on the street too. So taking a look at making improvements for accessibility for walking, bicycling, and transit all along the corridor. Additionally, it was approved via City Council to remove the stop signs on the minor cross streets as well. So currently, traffic on 7th Street stops everywhere between Walnut and Indiana, and most of those stop signs will be removed with this project. Next, this is a rendering of the project as if you're standing in Woodlawn Avenue facing west. There are some minor changes that have happened since this, such as there will be fewer signs in the bus stop and a few small changes to the bus stop. But overall, this gives you an example of what it's like to be kind of in the street looking at some of these street changes. And this is a similar standing on in like the crosswalk on Walnut Street at Walnut and 7th facing east. And again, just gives an example of what that will look like once constructed. Our last public meeting before detail or to share the design was on June 18th, 2020. And since that time, some of the design changes have been to add rain gardens that will be maintained by City of Bloomington Utilities. Thank you, CBU, along this corridor in just a few of the locations on here. Additionally, we've worked with several property owners about their driveways and how the driveways will interact with the protected bike lane, and there will be some modifications. And we really thank the property owners who have worked with us throughout that process. And just a few other small changes here and there. Some of them were brought up by people attending the June 18th meeting and through comments we received, such as in the section from Indiana to Woodlawn, because there were no streets on the south side, the design hadn't showed breaks in the bike lane in order to access Park Avenue or Fess Avenue, and those breaks were added so that pedestrians can get through as well as people bicycling to access those streets. Now I'm going to ask Roy. Thanks.
Thank you, Beth. I was going to talk a little bit about the construction timeline for this. The design has been completed and we have published all of our bidding documents out on And our letting date or our bid due date is May 10th. So we'll receive bids and then we'll award shortly after that for construction. Our anticipated construction start date then will be in late May after we award the project. And then we have 2 completion dates that'll go through the summer. We have a completion date that's east of Indiana Avenue, and that's the section that's close to Indiana University. And then that's August 9th that we want to be able to have that area back open to traffic, which of course before the students get back and start to move in. And then the rest of the project will continue construction throughout the fall. And then our anticipated completion date is around November, towards the end of November, that we hope to wrap up most of that work. Want to go to the next slide for me, Beth? Yeah, but wanted to go ahead and show just why we're in construction, which will start probably May and June. You'll start to see some work out there. And then we'll have a maintenance of traffic plan that's in place. So we'll have some closures that are going to be required to get this work completed. Our big closure will be that the eastbound traffic on 7th Street will be closed off throughout this project. And though we're going to maintain a westbound traffic as the project moves along. So you see there will be some detour routes, and the map has a lot of arrows on it, I understand, but that's the gist of it, is that you just won't be able to travel eastbound on 7th Street throughout this project. And then as the project progresses, once we have a contractor on board, we'll know a lot more about the, where they want to start, at what block, and that. And that usually is a decision that we leave up to the contractor as they're bidding it. So we'll have more information as we go along. If you're interested in like individual closures next to your business or residence or things like that, feel free to reach out to me. Once I have those answers, I'll be happy to share them with you. And then probably the other route is 7th Street's currently a bus route right now. And then there will be some rerouting of the buses during their project. And then I think Beth or Zach may know a little bit more about how they're going to reroute those buses.
Yeah, I can chime in unless you want to, Zach. But I know that because the eastbound will be closed, Bloomington Transit will be rerouting down to 6th Street for the eastbound travel. Zach, do you want to add something?
Yeah, and that's we've been working with the city to coordinate the closures here. And part of that is the 7th Street between Indiana and Woodlawn there. We want to work on that specifically during the summer months when it would have less impact on transit activity. So during those summer months, the bus would travel up Indiana all the way up to 10th Street. During the fall, when classes are back in session, it would travel down 6th Street and continue to use 7th Street for the period of time there.
Okay, thanks. And Bloomington Transit is great at posting detours and information about any changes that will happen. And the way to find out about those specifically as they come up is visiting bloomingtontransit.com, checking on the BT Twitter, which is BT_transit, or following Bloomington Transit on Facebook. So if any questions come up about that and changes along the way, that's where folks can find it. Okay. And with that, that's the presentation. So we are ready to take questions from folks. If anybody has questions, some options are to type a question into the chat box or to use the raise hand function, which I need somebody to describe how people do that. I don't have it on my screen, I'm sorry. Okay. once the construction schedule has started, or I guess been figured out in more detail, Roy, can you share, if people have questions at that time, what's the best way to get in touch, either with you with questions or with construction? What are people's best options for that?
Yeah, one of the best options is our website for the project, which I think Beth has, and on it you'll find both Beth and my contact information. There's email, phone. Please reach out if you do have any questions. We'll be happy to help you. It's still kind of a mystery about where they'll be. We know they'll be in this construction schedule through this summer and into the fall, but where they'll be working at this time, we have to wait till we get a contractor to get those kind of smaller details. What we usually do is we ask our contractors to always work with property owners and businesses during construction, make sure that driveways are open or accesses to businesses remain open, and to coordinate all that with the business owners as they're going along the line. So when they're out working in front of your establishment or your residence, they should be coordinating with you. If not, get a hold of us. We want to coordinate with you also. The idea is to try, construction, it gets a little bit messy. We want to try to keep it down as much as possible and try to keep the area as open as we possibly can, but still try to get the job done in our construction schedule.
Okay, great. And share the website just in the chat in case people need that. But otherwise, I would just say we're here for questions, and we don't have any more content to share. So if you don't have any questions, I say go enjoy the rest of your evening. And we look forward to getting this project on the ground. Thanks for sharing your excitement, Kurt. We're excited about that too. Okay, so with no other questions, I think I'll just end the meeting and I'll post the recording. But you all have the website and our contact info, and just look forward to getting this built. So thanks so much.